images of the universe like we have never seen before.
This image is one of the most iconic of all Hubble images.
In 2009, a renowned newspaper, the Weekly World News, made a startling revelation that would forever change how the world perceived NASA. In that shocking edition, they disclosed how NASA's Hubble Space Telescope, during a routine space observation, had discovered what seemed to be a new civilization in space. When this revelation was released, it sent shockwaves through the global community, from world leaders to scientists and even religious groups who were terrified about its implications. Surprisingly, NASA, the body responsible for the discovery, was unbothered and tight-lipped. Now, finally, after prolonged years of agonizing silence, NASA has come forward with an even more astonishing revelation about this acclaimed discovery. What is this revelation, and why did NASA wait so long to share this information with the world? Why did this discovery shock religious people? Let's find out by deciphering NASA's mystery. Have you ever been in a situation where you're presented with two seemingly correct pieces of information and torn between deciding which is true or false? I guess we all have had such an experience at some point in our lives. Therefore, it'll be very easy to understand the plight of many religious and cosmic enthusiasts when the media was dominated by a certain picture that put the authenticity and reliability of both NASA and the government on the line. NASA, as we've always known, has been our planet's eyes in the sky for the longest. We can remember it because of their sky vigilante that they have been able to answer some of humanity's long-standing questions and even discover the ability of some other planets to support life, just like planet Earth. But who would have thought that their Space Watchman's discoveries, which were meant to help us understand our place in the universe, would do the absolute opposite, just like it did in 1996? According to media reports, so as not to get lost in this complicated possibility, join us in this video as we clear the air about one of NASA's most profound discoveries that shocked the religious community. For those not privy to the genesis of this story, let's give you a quick rundown. The Weekly World News publication, a few years ago, noted that NASA was on a roll, making one big discovery after another in space exploration when all of a sudden, they got hit with a report that just rocked the whole organization. It all started in 2009 with an article written by the Weekly World News and a headline titled New Hubble Images. In this article, a researcher named Mara Masson claimed she had gotten her hands on a top-secret photo taken by the Hubble Space Telescope back in 1994, and what she saw was unbelievable. According to her, this was not the usual space photo, but something that seemed like something from a sci-fi scene. To sound more believable, she claimed her report was based on information from some of NASA's highly placed staff members, who confirmed that Hubble had sent hundreds of these photos back to their Maryland command center. According to them, just after NASA astronauts had gone up and fixed the Hubble, the telescope was focused on a star cluster on the edge of the universe, and what it captured was nothing short of mind-blowing. The picture allegedly showed a massive glowing city just floating out there in the darkness of space, which NASA believed to be heaven. However, the image had a foggy spot that immediately piqued the curiosity of a certain Professor Ken Wilson from the University of Florida. Masson reported that, to confirm if something had gone wrong with the Hubble, her source claimed a certain Professor Wilson ran a thorough examination of the image, and when he had ruled out any possibility of the Hubble malfunctioning, Masson's source said Wilson asked that NASA quickly schedule a follow-up observation, this time programming the telescope to capture that same area but in the highest possible resolution. When the results were released on the large projector in the lab, what they saw was astounding, as the foggy spot was now replaced with a still massive bright structure. This time, it clearly revealed towers, domes, and even a structure resembling a watchtower. Around these towers were brilliant orange-colored figures with wingspans as large as airplanes and peaceful, smiling faces. According to her source, what made the situation even more fascinating was when the advanced computer simulations showed that Earth and other planets were drifting away from it, leaving it at the center of the cosmos, like ripples radiating outward from a pebble dropped in a still pond. To make matters more interesting, Masson's source also revealed that due to the strangeness of the situation, the president and vice president were said to have shown keen interest in the photos, demanding daily updates on the matter. With all these claims, We can already picture how crazy the period was for those at NASA. But being the meticulous people they were, NASA refused to comment, saying they needed more time to analyze the images. But the Weekly World News was not having it, so they threatened to publish what they claimed was an exclusive photo of the structure to substantiate their claims. This was when NASA spoke up for the first time, denying the photo's existence. With this heated duel between NASA and the publishers, the public was left scratching their heads, not knowing whom to believe, especially as the reporters had involved names of prominent figures in their reports. Who was telling the truth? Was it the tabloid, or was NASA denying the reports and attempting to hide some incredible discovery for whatever reason they had? We'll find out soon what actually happened when NASA finally broke the silence. A whole new dimension was introduced to the story, and this was their side of the story. Finally, after years of hard work, the Hubble Space Telescope was launched into orbit on April 24, 1990. Unknown to them, this instrument would be the root cause of a severe controversy that even the scientists would not be able to weather. When the Hubble first launched in 1990, everyone was excited to see what it would find, but pretty soon, scientists realized there was a big problem. The telescope's main mirror had a flaw called spherical aberration. This meant the images it was taking were all blurry and distorted. It was a real setback that threatened to derail the whole mission. But the scientists and engineers weren't about to give up that easily. They got to work, determined to fix this issue and make sure the Hubble could do what it was built to do: explore the cosmos in incredible detail. Their solution was to send up a crew to make some repairs and install corrective optics. While that wasn't an easy feat, the team pulled it off, and the results were amazing. Their assignment was to install something called the Corrective Optics Space Telescope Axial Replacement, or COSTAR for short. COSTAR was designed to compensate for the main mirror's spherical aberration. It had these special corrective optics that would intersect, keep the light coming into the telescope, and redirect it to the scientific instruments. So, by bypassing that flawed mirror, COSTAR was able to restore Hubble's imaging abilities and allow it to start capturing much clearer, more accurate images of the cosmos. With these key repairs and upgrades done, it was like the Hubble was reborn. About a year after the Hubble Space Telescope was repaired and working really well again, in a bid to study and uncover some secrets that were hidden in the galaxy, the Hubble team decided to take on an ambitious project. They chose a tiny, seemingly empty patch of the sky, an area no bigger than a grain of sand held at arm's length. Then they pointed the Hubble at that spot and let it collect light for 10 full days. During that time, Hubble captured the universe's faintest and most distant objects, and when the image was finally revealed, it was absolutely astounding, as scientists had never seen anything like it before. On that fateful day in 1994, scientists at NASA's offices in the United States were casually going about their work when suddenly something extraordinary happened. It was the Hubble Space Telescope that had captured a set of photographs that left the team utterly bewildered. As the researchers began to analyze the images, they were shocked to discover what appeared to be a massive, shiny city floating in space. This was completely unlike anything they had ever seen before, and it left them feeling both intrigued and unsettled, unsure of how to proceed. The NASA team was caught off guard when Hubble's web server was mysteriously made public, allowing these mysterious photographs to spread rapidly across the internet. The government quickly tried to classify the images and restrict public access, but it was too late, as a photographer at LA Airfield had already managed to snap his own shots of the astonishing image. As they deeply examined Hubble's astonishing photographs, they began to uncover even more mysterious details about the extraordinary structure captured in them. But before they were even done with their investigations, many religious folks had jumped to the conclusion that this celestial structure was heaven, otherwise called the City of God, which they believed was the dwelling place of departed souls. However, the NASA researchers were far more skeptical of these notions. They knew they needed to approach this discovery with a rigorous scientific mindset, so they continued in their search for answers. But while they investigated, other astronomers noticed that, interestingly, this acclaimed city had a striking resemblance to another cosmic object, the Red Rectangle Nebula. The Red Rectangle, or HD 44179, as it's officially called, has always been a real head-scratcher for researchers. According to these experts, At first glance through regular telescopes, it looks like a reddish rectangular shape in the sky. But when the Hubble got a good look at it, things got a whole lot more complicated. The images transmitted revealed it appeared like a ladder-like structure with projections extending outward in a crazy, web-like pattern, giving it the appearance of a series of nested wine glasses filled to the brim with glowing cosmic gas. NASA's investigation began, and some really observant scientists decided to closely study the image in search of clues that could be helpful in solving this mystery. By this time, the City of God story was a public sensation, so the NASA team knew they had to get to the bottom of this once and for all. It wasn't long before they noticed something was off about the image. If you've ever seen Rayall Hubble images before, you'll notice they have this very distinctive visual signature. Those long radial spikes emanating from any bright objects in the frame. These Hubble spikes are proof of how mirror-based telescopes work. When light enters the telescope, it interacts with the long support struts holding the secondary mirror in place. This causes the light to diffract, creating those elongated spike patterns. As the number and arrangement of the spikes are consistent, always lining up at neat 90 degrees angles, in this supposed City of God image, the spikes were all over the place, not symmetrical. That was the first big tip-off to the NASA investigators that something wasn't right. They realized this couldn't be an authentic Hubble shot, but rather some digital manipulation or imitation. Further investigation confirmed their suspicions. This sensational City of God image was not the result of groundbreaking new observations from the famous space telescope. And so, with this finding, they arrived at the conclusion that the flying news and image was simply an elaborate hoax, likely created by someone adept at photo editing to generate buzz and misinformation. And guess what? They were right. It was all made up. Let me shock you. This was not the first time people were selling false news about what they claimed NASA had discovered. Sometime in 2014, another celestial image circulated on the internet. And when it was investigated, the person behind the image was discovered to be Adam Ferris. Adam Ferris is an artist who works with digital images. He is known for his unique way of working with photos from space telescopes. One of his most famous projects is called 500 Years Away. He created this series between 2012 and 2014. In that series, Ferris took images from space telescopes and ran them through his own special computer software. Interestingly, one of the images from this series got many astounded, as it looked like a photo representation of the gates of heaven and space. But just like you would rightly guess, the image was a pure work of digital manipulation. The original image Ferris used was a photo of a space cloud called the Omega Nebula, or Swan Nebula, taken by the European Southern Observatory in 2011. Upon investigation, it was discovered that he used a certain software to rearrange the pixels of this nebula image, and whatever manipulation he did resulted in this false gate of heaven. Now back to the main gist. Since NASA had confirmed that the purported image of the City of God was fake, experts had to trace the story back to where it was originally heard from. And where else were they to check but the Weekly World News, where the news originally came from? So, first they decided to do a little fact and background check. People really interested in the case asked those involved. The reporter Dr. Masson and those NASA insiders she claimed gave her the information to come forward with evidence, but to their utmost surprise, none of them did. That was when suspicions skyrocketed, pushing them to dig deep into the background of this newspaper. Well, let's just say their next finding shocked them even more than the fake press release that was made. Their second shock came when they discovered that the Weekly World News was a tabloid notorious for featuring the most outlandish and often entirely fictional news stories one could imagine. The false report about NASA, unfortunately, was one of its stories. Its content revolved around supernatural, paranormal, and satirical themes that seemed to defy logic and reality. In another report, these same people reported that aliens had officially endorsed a particular presidential candidate during an election campaign. Before that release, they were fond of frequently telling false stories of extraterrestrial beings interacting with humans. But this particular instance took it to new heights of absurdity. As if that wasn't enough, they repeatedly reported sightings of Elvis Presley, even though he had died in 1977. These stories claimed that Elvis was very much alive and well, often being spotted at various locations around the world. To lend credibility to these claims, the tabloid would publish photographs and so-called eyewitness accounts to support the Elvis sightings, just like they did in NASA's case. In another instance, they claimed that a group of hikers had stumbled upon a baby alien in the New Mexico desert. According to the story, this extraterrestrial infant was found inside a crashed spaceship and was subsequently taken to a secret government facility for examination. But they went on, at another time, to write a whole column telling the story of a woman who gave birth to a 12-foot cockroach after being bitten by a radioactive cockroach. Did they come up with any plausible explanation for the mystery image that caused this large ruckus? The next chapter will reveal that. So, let's find out the truth about NASA's Hubble space discovery. Now, to the part we all have been waiting for. With the truth revealed, while waiting for NASA's official statement in this regard, astronomers stepped in to explain what the image truly could be. In an interview with CNN, a meteorologist said that those images may have been caused by a phenomenon called a fata morgana. A fata morgana is an optical illusion that can make things look different than they really are. This happens when light bends as it passes through layers of warm and cold air. For example, a fata morgana can make ships look like they are floating above the water, or it can distort shapes on the horizon, making them look weird and unnatural. Thank you for joining us on this episode. Also, don't forget to air your views in the comments section. Before you log off, kindly like, subscribe, and share this video to help spread the news.